Either means, boy, they really got good at teaching, or what? Cheating, yes. Cheating, and that's in fact what they were discovering. There's so much pressure on the schools and on the teachers that they were, they were taking the tests after the students took the tests, and then going through and erasing the wrong answers, putting in the right answers, and so on. The trouble is they were doing it stupidly. They had made them look so much better that it was impossible that there could have been that much improvement. Okay, so it stuck out, and again, good newspapers. In fact, the Dallas Morning News was one of the first to start doing these kinds of things. They had done a big study of all the schools in Texas where George Bush was from, where his signature program was this No Child Left Behind thing, and basically showing that all this improvement that he had been talking about, a great deal of it was just pure cheating, which says something, I guess, about Americans. I had students, my own students at ASU did a nice study of bicycle accidents around the university. A lot of, we have 60,000 students at ASU, very big place. A lot of them are on bicycles, and there are always accidents of various kinds. So they got the data about all the times the ambulances had to be called because somebody got hurt, and made maps, and created information about when it's most likely to happen, and that kind of thing. It was a very good story. Analyses have been done of Oscar winners, trying to predict who is most likely to win, and so on, doing that kind of thing. Another big area is sports injuries. The New York Times has done a great series of stories about injuries in American football, the kind where they wear the helmets and all that kind of thing. There's unfortunately a large number of professional football players in America who are having horrible brain injuries. They're dying in their 50s and they're having Alzheimer's early and so on because they've had concussions so often. And by analyzing those kinds of patterns, looking at death certificates and so on, they've been able to actually show the danger of all that. So the point of all these is computer-assisted reporting is something that can be applied to almost anything reporters are interested in or that readers are interested in. There are kind of two branches of computer-assisted reporting. There's the online side of it, the kind where you actually are going out to gather the information, download it, get it from various kinds of sites, and where you're actually looking for the information. And I'll mention a few of those good journalism sites here. Portugal, you actually have a really good statistics site, ENA. I'm pronouncing that right? ENA, INE, whatever it is. Okay. The Instituto Nacional de Estatística. Okay. Great deal of information there. It's both census information about the people, but also about the houses, but about the economy, crime, the environment, all kinds of well-gathered information about things that are going on all across Portugal are in this site. The kinds of data that I looked at before I come to do talks like this in Portugal, I pulled this data directly out of this site. And in fact, after we take our break, I'm going to show you a bit using a spreadsheet on some crime data that I got out of here and some things you can do with that. So this is really a gold mine of information that tells you differences about different parts of Portugal and the different people and sort of how society is working. So I strongly recommend you get used to that. Well, I'll add one other thing. As I hope you know, Portugal is doing its census. I think they actually have completed the census, and the information is coming out now. I think the first wave of it has started coming out, but over the next couple of years, there'll be more and more information about data recently gathered about all the citizens of Portugal. Another really good site you have is Poor Data. Some of you may be familiar with Poor Data. This was created by a foundation, a wealthy person who decided it's important for the citizens to be able to get the information about the way their society works. And so by creating this site, he's tried to make it even easier than the Instituto Nacional de Estatística has done, to get that kind of information. Okay, so poor data is really good, and sort of each of these little, nice pictures here is different areas. Science, technology, business, social protection, education, health, and so on. All those different things, and there is data. This is not just sort of like descriptive stuff. This is actual counts and measurements of these problems. So looking at poordata.pt is good. I strongly recommend, if you get interested in this kind of thing, IRE. IRE stands for Investigative Reporters and Editors. IRE was started, I think it's 35 years ago in the United States. It grew out of, in fact, one of the only two that I know of, but probably the first and most visible assassination of a reporter. One other thing I learned when I go to conferences like in Kiev, where so many people are coming from countries where reporters are being killed all over the place, it makes me appreciate being in America, where this kind of thing is really rare. But it has happened. And in fact, this happened in Phoenix, where I now work. About 35 years ago, a reporter for the local paper named Don Bowles got a call from a source. The source said, come to this bar and meet me, I've got some information for you. Don went to the bar, hung around for about a half an hour. The source never showed. He went back out to the parking lot, got in his car, turned it on, and it blew up. Dynamite had been placed under the car, and he died about 3 days later. That year, just before this happened, Don had been one of the original group of organizers of something they called Investigative Reporters and Editors. A collection, at that time, a small group of reporters who were going to help each other do investigative stories. So anyway, when Don got killed, these other reporters joined with others from large papers and TV and so on around the country, all came to Phoenix and set up what they called the Arizona Project. And they spent months basically continuing the investigation that Don had been working on. It dealt with organized crime in Arizona. And the whole idea was to show that, you can kill one of us, but the story isn't going to go away. So it's not going to do you any good to kill us, was the message we hope to get across. Out of that grew what is now known as Investigative Reporters and Editors. We have even now about 4,000 members, not just US, a growing number of international members. And in fact, the other thing that I find really encouraging is a growing number of organizations like this in other countries that are sort of affiliated with IRE but are their own thing. In fact, the Kiev conference is sort of organized by another group of investigative reporters. IRE for members, and I don't know what the sort of international membership price is. I think it's pretty low. For the US, even if you're a professional reporter, it's only $60 a year. The student membership is $25 a year. In fact, as a professor, I make my students join IRE instead of buying a textbook, because there's so much information that's in this site. There's information about how to do computer-assisted reporting, other kinds of investigative work. There's all kinds of information that's part of this site. So I strongly recommend taking a look at that. Here is one of the other international organizations. Should be comfortable for you guys. Look, you're actually seeing Portuguese up on the screen. Abraaj. They have a very active, good organization of investigative reporters in Brazil. They do annual conferences. A couple of years ago, I got to go to that conference and again do some training. They have all kinds of particular attention to computer-assisted reporting there. In fact, on the Abraaj site, they list about 4 different courses that they actually offer, including online courses in doing this kind of thing. Okay? So I'm kind of showing you this to give you an idea of how important sort of a growing number of people who are doing really good investigative reporting think this kind of work is. So Abraaj, great organization, very good. And again, you'll find material that is in a language that you understand well. This one is kind of a fun site. I recommend you kind of take a look at it at least. It's in English. A lot of the links on it, again, are American-centered, but actually I would love to, maybe this would be a good project for me perhaps, another good reason to come back to Portugal. I'd like to create something like that in Portuguese. Not that I can speak it, but I make Antonio help me translate it. What it is one page, and it goes way down, you can't see it all there, but it's one page of links that are the kinds of things reporters would use. So not only these web search things, but it'll have links to various government agencies and data, links to dictionaries, to encyclopedias like Wikipedia, links to maps, links to news sites, and so on, all on one page. And it's so useful that it's actually used, this is the opening page on a lot of newspapers. When you come in the morning and you turn on your computer, this is what will pop up on the web browser. This is another kind of useful thing to look at. NewYorkTimes.com/Navigator, and it's a collection of links that New York Times reporters have found to be useful. And again, this goes on way long. This is one of those really deep pages. I just have obviously a screenshot here. But hundreds and hundreds of links on all kinds of things. You know, not only serious political and world things about politics and so on, but also things dealing with, I don't know, the movies and style and fashion, just anything is on there. All stuff that New York Times reporters have found useful. So anyway, that's like a tiny example of the kinds of sites that are out there that reporters are finding useful. I imagine you guys also have your own ones that you know of that I'm not even aware of. So anyway, the online side, I've just given you a quick overview there, but I want to talk a little bit about this data analysis side that I've been talking about here. What do I mean when I say data? Data. Dado. Is it dado in dado? Dado. Dados, okay, in Portuguese. I did remember last year when I was teaching and I was demonstrating stuff using using my computer and telling the class, okay, click on data, and they're all looking at me kind of, you remember that, Eudora? You all were kind of looking at me blankly, and I finally realized that in fact they're all looking at Excel, except it's in Portuguese, of course, and so that was obviously yet another burden for all my students. Is trying not only to understand what I was saying in English, but also to follow me in English as they're trying to do it on Portuguese. So again, I congratulate my students that did that. Anyway, what dados is organized information that's in tables, okay, rows and columns. Something like that, where each row represents some individual record, some particular thing, whether it's a person or a place or an accident, a crime, any of those kinds of things would be a record. And then the columns would be the variables, the things about that particular individual or crime or whatever. Okay, and after we take our break, I'm going to play around. I'm going to show you some things that can be done using Excel. The kinds of tools that are used in computer-assisted reporting include these, and I'll give you some quick pictures of some of these here shortly. Basically, your word processor can be a computer-assisted reporting tool. And I'll talk about that in a second. There are spreadsheets. Microsoft Excel is probably the most commonly used one of all these, certainly among reporters. Big part of the reason is Microsoft Office is on most computers. Most organizations, they wind up buying it, and so it's sitting there. So it's a powerful tool. In fact, I would argue that 80 to 90% of anything you would ever do in computer-assisted reporting can be done using Microsoft Excel. It has, so many different powers and abilities and so on that there's not a lot of need to go beyond it. Every once in a while there is, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But there are other things you can use too, including Google Docs. I don't know if any of you have played with that. There's a spreadsheet in Google Docs that will let you do many of the same kinds of things you can do in Excel. Nice thing about Google Docs, of course, is it's free. Doesn't cost anything. It's available. You turn on a computer any place and there it is. There also are database programs. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Commonly used is Microsoft Access.